Welcome to Blueprint Boost for Contractors, the podcast that's your go-to source for unlocking the secrets to successful marketing, gaining valuable insights, and growing your contracting business with less stress. Your host is David Brooks, and he's thrilled to be your guide on this journey. As a seasoned expert in the contracting industry, David understands the challenges you face. That's why each episode is crafted to provide you with actionable strategies and proven blueprints to boost your business to new heights.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, David Brooks, powered by Contractor Rhino, your go-to source for all your digital marketing and accounting needs for the trades. For this episode, we have a returning special guest, and I'll allow him to reintroduce himself.
Hey, David. Hey, yeah, I'm Jonathan Potoschnik, and I have spent most of my career in the trades. Is there anything, David, you want me to tell them about my past, or?
Yeah, sure. So for the new listeners that haven't listened to the previous episode, just give the new listeners a feel for who you are.
All righty. So I started out as a 14-year-old kid that wanted to figure out how to buy a car and have shoes, and just like my parents weren't buying me that stuff, and so I wanted to figure out how to make money. I ended up making more money in high school than my teachers and coaches made, which was this light bulb moment that, oh, maybe I shouldn't get a job. Maybe this is what I should do in life. And that ended up leading me into the software industry, into the trades. I've been in cleaning. I've been in lawn care, pest control. I've done multiple software businesses. I've done tons of software consulting. Basically, the theme is I've just done lots of stuff, too much stuff, in fact, trying to figure it out, trying to get to success. And so I've got tons of experience, but at the end of the day, most of my career has accidentally ended up being in the trades, which wasn't what I thought I was going to do in life. And I love it. I love the people in the industry, in the trades. I love the team members. I love the client. I just like the whole thing. I don't know that I loved it in the beginning, but as I've got good at it and I've really learned the business in the industry, this is my world and this is what I'm going to do the rest of my career.
Awesome. That's a great way to reintroduce yourself. I love it. I love it. So you've done a lot of things over the course of your career and your years here on Earth, but now you're embarking on a new thing, which is 5 for 50. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I had this event where I sold a majority stake in Service Autopilot. So I'm still I don't participate. I have no say, but I'm still technically this owner in this business called Explore. That's a variety of software companies. And after I quit running that business in 2021, April of 2021, I took a 3-year sabbatical. And I've really tried to figure out what am I going to do next. I still have other stuff, but I don't run anything. And so I truly took a sabbatical where I did nothing related to work. And I've really struggled with, hey, what do I want to do next? I've got too many options and too many opportunities. And the thing that I keep coming back to that I've most enjoyed in everything I've done has been helping other people in some way. For whatever reason, I get a lot of satisfaction from it, hearing that, hey, my world is different because I got to know you and because of some of the ideas you gave me. And in the coaching thing, doing the coaching business, I just developed a lot of relationships with a bunch of people that have had a lot of success, and it makes me really happy. And I'm kind of at this point where in life, I'd like to make more money, but I don't care that much. And so I think I get more, if I try to think about how do I optimize the rest of my life, it's not around trying to build another company to make a bunch of money. It's more around how can I get more of the great experiences I've had in the past? And those experiences have generally been around helping people get what they want. And so in trying to figure out what I want to do next, I decided I would do this thing called 5 for 50. And the best way, I'm still figuring out how to describe what I'm doing. I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going, frankly. But with 5 for 50, it's essentially just me giving knowledge. Here's what I would do based on what I've experienced. It may or may not work for you. It'll probably work for you, but this is what I've experienced. It's worked. I know thousands of other people have built businesses. Here's commonalities that I've seen with them. This is what'll work. So it started out as just a YouTube channel, and it's about to expand into more social channels. I'm about to launch some roadmaps where I'll be releasing content to try to walk you through the process of starting a business, walk you through the process of how do I go from a business, like a really small business in its infancy, to $1 million business? How do I help you go from $1 million to a 3 or a 5 or $10 million business if you want to go down that road? And all of it's going to be free. And I'm just going to do my best to try to figure out what are those steps that I need to give you to help you get there. And that's really the entirety of the plan. Maybe someday I do coaching again. I don't know. But if I do, then, you'll find out. But I have no idea. So I wish I had a better answer, David, but that's kind of how I'm thinking of it. I'm not sure. I will admit I overthink this all the time. Like my brain spins on this. Like, what am I doing exactly here? Why am I doing this? And then I just have to keep reminding myself, who cares? Just like, this is what I want to do. This is what I think I should be doing. Just do it. And so I'm not great at explaining it just yet.
And that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes we're driving a car and we haven't set the destination yet. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I definitely don't have the grand vision that I feel like I need, but I have learned, having done a lot of different things over the years, that it all unfolds in time and you don't need the full plan. That'll slow you down if you need the full plan.
But I love the fact that you're trying to give back and you're trying to create these resources and these things to help along the way as others are embarking on this journey and they haven't been where you've been before. You have a lot of knowledge that you definitely can share with people, and we love that. We love especially on this podcast and YouTube channel, we love to be able to give back informative information and helpful things. And I know that you have mentioned, having that roadmap, being able to create that step by step roadmap for business owners. Can you give us some insights into some of the things that are on the roadmap that our listeners need to be thinking about?
Sure. So there's action-oriented things you need to do, and then there's conceptual things you need to understand. So maybe let's talk about some of the conceptual things, because I think if you understand a few conceptual ideas, if you understand these concepts, then it's like they will guide the things you do and guide the things you don't do. So maybe, people might want tactics like, hey, you need to do a Facebook campaign and you need to put $200 a month behind it. Like maybe that's good to talk about, and we can try to get to some of that stuff, but you can guide this but let me give you some big core concepts that will guide your decision making. So one I would say is that when you're thinking about what matters most, like at the end of the day, what are we trying to accomplish and what do we need to most think about, most focus on when we're trying to get this business from $1,000 a month in revenue to $1 million, or maybe your goal's 500, or maybe your goal's 300, or 10 million, whatever the goal is. In that whole phase of, let's call it 0 to $1 million, there is one thing that matters, and it is generating cash. And this is not something I've always talked about. This is something that more as I've been thinking about this and trying to put myself in your position, if you're listening, and just think about what I went through in the early days. I had sometimes the wrong focus. And I'm gonna try, I hope I can explain this where it resonates with you. And what I mean by that is, when I started our outdoor service company, City Turf, I was just focused on, I had seen some other companies that I heard of this company had 1,000 clients. Like, I want 1,000 clients. That was my goal. My goal was getting clients. And I think we all have a thing that we're marching to. Maybe we haven't specifically said the goal, but we've got this thing. I'm just trying to get to $3,000 a month so I can pay my apartment rent. I'm just trying to get to, there's something. Mine was this 1,000 clients, which was, for me, felt like this bigger, ambitious goal that was going to take years to get to it. And because that was my number one goal, and I didn't have this generating cash goal, mistakes were made. And I'll give you an example. I would have been scared to raise prices, because what happens when you raise prices, or what do you think happens? You sell less work maybe because you're more expensive. And then 2, what if Miss Smith leaves you? Well, that harms getting to your 1,000 client goal. And so there's all these little decisions that you make trying to get to that goal. Well, when your focus is, hey, the way this business works is we've got to make as much cash as possible. And I'm not talking about like this greed element where I got to make cash so I can go buy this car or buy this house. I'm talking about the only way your business ever wins, the only way your life gets better is by having money to grow the business.
Mhm.
And so you need cash to be able to hire a better team member or your first team member. You need cash to be able to afford to do some Facebook marketing or have somebody put out door hangers or whatever, paint your trucks.
Mhm.
Cash is required for all these things. And again, it's not like me or you, like we don't get this concept, but if it's not center and focused, then you don't make the right decisions. I'll give you an example. The reason you raise your prices is so that you have enough profit to actually generate cash. The reason you get a team member is so that if you pay that team member $22 an hour and you bill them out at 60, you make that spread. That puts cash in your bank account. So you can buy a better truck, so you can get a better team member, so you can eventually get an office, so you can get Susie to answer the phone. Like the whole game is about generating cash at the end of the day, but we minimize that. We minimize our focus on the cash. David, does this make sense? Like the way I'm describing it, do you think it resonates
I
with?
think resonates very well.
Okay, good. And and the reason I ask is because I never had, for the longest time, I never thought about it this way. It's like, of course, we all know we need to make money. Of course, we know our bank account needs to get bigger because that's how we pay for things. But if we're not, but have we really thought about it? If you really think about it, then every day you tell yourself, well, this is why I need to do the price increase. This is why I need to do this thing. This is why I need to do this thing. I need my bank account balance to grow so I can fix all the other problems. So this is sort of where it starts. Like I really think about this as a core concept. I want you to really focus on this is why you have to be profitable. And here's another place I think this is coming from. I've talked to lots of people over time that they're not really worried about their profit margins, and I wasn't either. You could have asked me in the early days of City Turf about my profit margins. Why? I don't care about my profit margin. I'm growing the business.
Mhm.
Well, and that's true. If you're growing really fast, your profit margins are going to come way down. But if you don't really understand your numbers and if you're not pricing right, you could be telling yourself this feel good story that the reason my profit margins are low is because we're growing. But the reality might be, yeah, you are growing, but you're not growing that fast. But the real reason your profit margins are low is because you're screwing it up. You're not pricing right. You're doing all these things wrong. And if your margins are low, that means you're not generating cash. And so that's this big thing where it's like, okay, we need to be really focused on being really profitable because that brings in the money for the growth. So that's one of the big things. I've got several others for you. Do you want me to pause here? Or you want me to keep going?
No, I love it. Keep going.
Okay. Another one I think about is, and I'll try not to be as long-winded on this one. Another one I think about is this. I've seen this play out in so many ways. I call it like the gas brake problem, where it's like we're in our business, in the building of our business, we're on the gas and like hard on the brake, off the gas. A couple ways this plays out. One, we decide we need to start doing some marketing. And this is one I've seen a million times. You hire an SEO company, a marketing company to do marketing for you. And they start doing your marketing. And all of a sudden in spring, you have all these leads. And it's like, holy crap, I can't handle all the leads. I'm paying you whatever, $500, $1,000, $2,000, whatever the number is you're paying your company. Please slow it all down. And they put their foot on the brake, or you cancel these companies, these marketing companies. You cancel it because you got too many leads. And then what happens? June, July, some month comes around and it all just falls off a cliff. And then it's like, it's always feast or famine is my example. And it's like, wait, this is not how you grow a thing. You got to find that equilibrium between gas and brake, but you can't be all gas, all brake all the time. You're never going to get there. The other way this plays out is in hiring employees and getting clients. So if you only focus on getting clients, like, okay, you're working with your marketing company or you're doing your own marketing, we have lots of leads coming in, but we haven't done the same thing over on the recruiting side, meaning we don't have a bunch of candidates coming in, then marketing starts going well. And you're like, holy cow, I don't have anybody to do the work. Slam on the marketing brakes because I don't have people to do the work. Okay. The inverse is also true. You suck at marketing, but for whatever reason, you have a variety of people that want to join your company. You have access to people. So now you've got, capacity there. So you've got people available to you, but you slam on the hiring brakes because you haven't fixed the marketing side of your business. And so this is the other concept. Like, how do you get those two things, the recruiting, the bringing in team members, and the bringing in clients in balance? And you have to spend a portion of your time and money on both things. I would say that I see the vast majority of all companies spend all their time on the sales and marketing side. They may not actually be spending a lot of money on it, but that's where all their brain power goes. That's where all their effort goes. They're turning estimates, they're selling, they're trying to bring in new clients. They're at least maybe thinking about painting their truck, and they're doing activities around sales and marketing. What exactly are they doing around recruiting and getting the next employee? It's like, oh crap, I need an employee. We'll spend 4 hours on that on Tuesday, and then that's it. Like, or we just spend a little, we're not spending much time on it yet. It's one of the most important functions in a business. So as you think about how do you get in a relatively quick way to $1 million, if that's your goal, from 0 to 1 million, it's spending time on both of these activities, the sales and marketing side and the recruiting. If you are actually spending time on recruiting, you won't go to your marketing company and say, stop everything, or I'm canceling you because I can't handle all these leads. I've just seen that so many times. So I really encourage you to be thinking about both of these things. Are you spending 25 hours a week on marketing and sales, and you're spending 1 on recruiting? You got a problem. So you need to be spending more time on both things. Now, obviously, if you're at a place right now where you don't have a need for any team members, you don't need to spend a lot of time on recruiting yet. But I will tell you, there will come a point where even when you have a full team, like let's say it's 1 person, it's 4 people, it's 100 people, whatever, you'll get to a place where, like, right now we don't need more team members, but you need to at some point never stop the recruiting. And basically you're collecting names and phone numbers for the day you're ready for that next person. You're building your benches, they would say, like using a sports analogy, where we don't just wait until we have pain and a problem to go find people. We've already got a backlog of potential team members that might want to come work for us. And so the marketing thing on the recruiting side should never stop. So it's just keeping those two things in balance. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes total sense, especially for mine.
Yeah, as I started giving that analogy at the beginning of what I said, I was like, wait, this is actually I didn't do that on purpose. It's like, and then I realized, like, oh, this is actually a pretty good analogy for him. Yeah. But it's 100% true. I was doing the coaching thing, and my brother used to be in the green industry. Used to do a bunch of marketing in the green industry. And I don't know if he does anymore. I know he does a lot of other industries that are bigger, like big stuff. But so I would always hear from him about this challenge. And so that's where that was coming from. That's why that idea came up. But it would just drive me crazy because I'm trying to help my coaching clients. And it's like, man, well, you're never going to get there. It's kind of like the employee. Here's another example. It's kind of like this employee thing. It's like, hey, it's August. I'm finally ready to hire an employee. This is like a full-on lawn care example here. And I'm ready for an employee. But you know what? We're going to go into winter in October. So maybe I'll just wait till next spring. And so and it's very logical, like, of course, because you got to carry them through the winter. Very logical. But that just keeps happening year after year after year. And so the business goes really slow because you say it's August. If I get them, I'm going to have to carry them through winter. So basically, you don't hire an employee, and then you slow down all growth for the rest of the season, saying that in spring we'll go faster. And then in spring, you start out with your normal team, and maybe you hire that person, or maybe you wait a couple. It's just like, it's a really slow way to grow. And it's very logical on why this happens, but it's a real watch out. It's trying to keep the sales and marketing engine and the recruiting engine in balance as best you can, so you're not on the brake all the time on either one of those two things. Another one that I would put out there, and David, redirect me if you want to, but another one I'd put out there is, I kind of think about, like, there's this analogy in the sales world. So in the software company I used to own, we had built an outbound sales team. So this was towards the end of my ownership of the very end of my running of the business, maybe the last couple of years. We built this outbound sales team. I think we had 30 something people that were, as they call it, dialing for dollars. They're calling you up and saying, I don't remember the scripts. They varied, you're always testing them, but they're basically trying to get you to sign up for Service Autopilot, the software we had. And, if you think about an analogy around sales, this is not my creation. This has been around for decades. The idea is you can put math to sales. If you make 100 phone calls, then 5 people are going to answer, and 1 person's going to convert. There's some number like that. And if you say these things, this is going to be the outcome. It's just a numbers game. And so if I have a team member that only makes 100 calls a day, then I can kind of, if they make 100 calls a day, I can kind of predict their result. If they only make 50, I can kind of predict the result that they're not going to be working for us very soon, because it's a math game. If you make 300 calls, you outperform everybody else, you're probably going to be a top performer. It's a game of math. Well, business is kind of that thing. Like, and building of your business is that way. So you're like, hey, I'm not getting the growth I want. I'm not getting the team members I need. I'm not getting, there's something you're experiencing that you're not getting. And I would say to you, are you doing the work? Like, there's no preaching here. Like, almost everything I talk about is because I experience these things, and these stupid mistakes that I've made are very real to me. And I think I'm not the only person that's made them. This is an example where I could have told myself, I'm doing all these things in the business and I'm spending all this time on stuff. But if I really measured it, it's like, you know what? I was wasting time here, or I was being unproductive here. I wasn't doing as much as I thought I was doing. Okay. And so as much as you can kind of think about, the sales example, it's like, how much time are you really spending on recruiting? How much time are you really spending on marketing? How many estimates did you really do? So as you think about it, it's like tracking, how many estimates did we do? How many calls did we make? How many phone calls did we answer? Like, how many follow-up calls did we make per estimate that went out? Like, there's all these things of that sort that are guideposts. Like, if you're tracking some of this data and it's like, hey, you actually track it, you might find out you actually almost never follow up on estimates. You might actually follow up on like 10% of estimates one time. But because you do the activity sometimes, if I were to say, how often do you follow up on your estimates, you'd be like, oh, like 50% of the time we follow up 2 or 3 times. But if you track the data, you might like, no, actually it's 10% of the time we follow up and we only follow up once. So there's I use that sales analogy because there's this value in actually not going off what you think you're doing, but what are you actually doing, the tracking of it. That's why as a business gets bigger, you have KPIs, you have key performance indicators, you're tracking numbers in the business. Because I'll take a quick detour. The worst part of firing a team member in a company is when the team member you have to call them into your office and you say, I've got to let you go, you're underperforming. And you can't actually articulate why they're underperforming. You just feel like they're underperforming. That's really miserable. It's like, we've all done it. I've fired many people over the years where I can't prove it, but I know they suck, but I can't prove it. And so it's hard. Mm-hmm. But if I can call a team member into my office and say, hey, I got to let you go. And I'm letting you go because every other team member on the floor doing customer service is doing 78 calls a day. And they're all writing their tickets and they're logging their tickets. You're doing 9. And by the way, I noticed that there's like half the time your phone is on do not disturb and the phone system isn't even able to route a call to you. When you have that data, it's not that hard to fire that person because they're screwing you. And so I use this KPI example, this tracking the data example. Like, if you have data that says, I'm actually spending this amount of time on marketing, I'm spending this amount of time on recruiting, I'm sending this number of estimates a day. And you don't have to go this far, but I'm just saying, if you have this awareness of the actual data of what you're doing and what your team members are doing, you will be amazed how when you say, we are going to do X of these things every day, and you track those things, you'll suddenly get a result. And it's just that we all think we're doing way more than we are, but we think to ourselves, I spent 3 hours on marketing, but really for an hour and 58 minutes, we watched some YouTube videos on marketing, and then we responded to some emails, and then we spent 18 minutes working on marketing that day. That's what really happens. But you don't know it, just as an example, and it happens all throughout the organization, but you don't know it unless you're tracking it. And I'll go back to, and you can't do all this from the beginning. It's like, it's too much. But this is why, as companies get bigger, they start tracking all this data and they start holding people accountable to the data, because that's what works. And so really think about that kind of stuff and really question, am I doing all the things I think I'm doing to get the result that I want? And for me, probably for you, that hasn't generally been true. I'll give you one other thing that pops to mind. A lot of us entrepreneurs, we love to jump around. We love the next cool idea. I'm going to use a marketing example here. We listen to a podcast, we listen to a YouTube channel, we read an Alex Hormozy book, and Alex has got this whole thing about this offer you need to write. We're like, oh, this is the greatest idea ever. or you listen to Russell Brunson, and you're going to build a funnel now for your business. This funnel is going to make me $2 million. We get all excited about it, and so you go and you do this thing, and you do it like 80%, and it never gets implemented, because then you hear the next cool podcast idea, and now you're off on that thing. So just as another example of this, where we're like, what are we really accomplishing? And this has been one of my big mistakes in life. I've created so many things that never got finished because I went on to the next thing because I was excited about it. Or I've created a bunch of stuff that has got out, and I'm using marketing here. This could be marketing for team members. It could be marketing for clients. It got out into the market. We ran it. I didn't immediately have success on it. I killed it and moved to the next thing, instead of doubling down on it and trying to figure it out and figuring out how to make it work. And so again, I just use this as an example. As you're thinking about your business, what are you really doing? And when you do something, did you just like kind of throw it out there in the world, whatever that thing is, and do it for a second? Didn't have, this aha moment of tremendous success, and you just scrap it and move to the next thing? Like, so much of what we need to do in business is about getting something out into the world and then refining, testing, trying, figuring it out. And eventually maybe it doesn't work. But oftentimes, if we go a little deeper with that thing, a marketing campaign, for example, we can make those things work really well. We just need to stick with it. So on that one, David, I felt like I might have got off in the weeds a little bit, where I don't know if I was talking over, if I was making sense. Do you think that resonated with those listening?
I think that resonated, where, where a business owner, they can compare it to, like you said, we're working on something. We don't see it all the way through. We go on to the next thing that excites us. We hear an idea that we want to implement our business. We started down that path. We never fully bake it out. We jump on to the next thing. We go on to the next area. And and likewise, I could know that I've seen many a times with, just from the marketing aspect of, hey, we're going to do this campaign. We're going to invest in this. And it's like, okay, great. And I always say that, no marketing is guaranteed, right? But I always call it testing. We're testing, we're tweaking, and you have to be patient. And some people, you could see the incremental growth, but it's like, well, it didn't get there when I needed it to get there, so I'm canceling it. But it's like, the trajectory is there, but you just didn't stick with it long enough.
Yeah. Boy, that's so true. And we all do it. I mean, again, I always worry that I sound like I'm preaching. Yeah. So there's no perfection on my side where I've just nailed it all. Like, these are hard learned lessons in some cases. So, okay. I figured you'd seen that as well, because it's been my experience working with lots of other people. So, those are some things I think about. I'll add another one that, that might be real true for your audience. And actually it ties it back to I love marketing, so I always end up going back to marketing. But one thing that I notice, and I just think it's detrimental for companies, and if you're in the trades, your territory, the size of the market you serve is really important, because the game of business is getting as much of the non-billable time out of your business as possible. That leads to profit. Non-billable stuff would be like drive time, real obvious one. When you're driving, you're not getting paid. Time fueling. The load time and unload time in the morning, how long they're spending writing notes after they finish the job, how long they spent talking to the client. All these things are non-billable expenses, and you want to minimize most of them as much as you can. And an example of constantly expanding your territory is you drive up a number of non-billable tasks. The biggest is drive time. You just don't get paid for it. Another one is fuel time. You're burning more fuel. They're getting gas more frequently. These, when you drive those costs down, you drive up the profitability of your company, which goes back to the very first thing I said. The more profitable it is, the more cash you have. Mm-hmm. Every hour of drive time you recover, if you're billing at $65, or we'll just do $70 an hour, if you recover an hour of time that you were previously spending an employee to drive, and you bill that time at $70, that $70 is pure profit. Like, you make all that in profit because you're already paying the employee. You already had all the overhead costs. You already had all the cost. And now you're already incurring it. So that $70 is essentially pure profit. That's how powerful recovering non-billable time is to the business. It's not like you only get 50% of it as profit. You get it all. Right? And so where I'm going with this one is, you really want to be careful to not spread your territory out. And the way I'll bring this back to a marketing example is, which is where my brain always goes. When you come into let's just say you're serving a city and you've got a truck running around, maybe that truck is painted and maybe you're spending a little bit of money. But you're also going to get some referrals. Maybe you have some friends and family that live in the city. Maybe they'll give you some business. Maybe then they'll make a few referrals. So there's this easy number of early clients you can get when you enter the city. Like if that makes sense. Like there's just this easy group of clients to get. But then as you get more and more business in that market, it gets harder to get the next level of clients. And what it requires is that we actually do some marketing. Now we've got to start becoming visible all over town, or especially in the neighborhoods we serve. So we have to start making more and more effort to be known, more and more effort to be trusted. And that costs more and more money to do that, meaning we got to spend more money on marketing. And so what happens is because most companies won't spend money or more money on marketing, it gets harder, like sales slow down in a city. And they probably can't describe this as what's happening, but they're like, I really need more business. And so I should go ahead and take I'm getting calls for the neighboring city. So I should go ahead and take some of those clients. And you just slowly spread out more and more. You may, again, not be able to articulate all this, but it's sort of what's happening in your mind is like, I need more business. Oh, yes, I'll say yes to them. I really don't want them, but I'll say yes. And the business just keeps expanding. Drive time keeps going up. So your non-billable time, what else happens? The other thing that happens is it's really hard to find good employees. And now this good employee is billing 28 hours a week, and he's not billing the other 12 hours a week. If I can get that employee to be billing 37 hours a week and not be billing 3, as an example, I utilize my very hard to find employees way better. If our number one problem is finding great employees, then we need to make the employees we have massively, productive. Because if in a scenario like I just gave, I could have 2 employees used efficiently instead of 3. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
All right. So this all goes back to marketing. Yeah, it's like, this is why we have to not be on the gas, on the brake, on the gas, on the brake. This is why we have to spend more money. This is on marketing. This is why we have to raise our prices so we can afford to spend more money. There's a variety of things like this that we need to do so that we can grow our businesses and go deeper into the market. Because going deeper in the market versus spreading out is where all the profit is at, which is what builds cash in your bank account.
1,000% resonate with everything, especially that last part, like not going too deep, focusing in, and being able to reinvest back in the business. And it was I shared an example of a prospect that I was talking to, and I always love to collect information and data. And they told me how many crew members that they had, and so,
Okay.
that's too many.
Hmm.
And this, what will, I always say rule of thumb is if you could spend 7 or 10% of your gross on marketing, you could be in, good shape. And then if you want to double
Yep.
down and go more, you can go higher, but at least that.
Yeah.
And they said, well, this is what I have. And it's like, wow, that you would have more money to invest into the business, but you're running a little heavy on extra employees, so that takes away that ability.
Yep. 100%.
Mhm.
Yep.
So you definitely need to be aware of a lot of these different things, especially, we're at the start of the year. We want to get it off to, a really good start. So we need to really be thinking about a lot of these different areas and focusing in and just doubling down, like, not getting what I call squirrel syndrome, and learn
Yep.
how to work on, one thing at a time and see it through. Like you said, hey, you have these roadmaps, and well, when you're on a roadmap, go from one point to the next. You just don't say, okay, I'm opening up Jonathan's roadmap and I'm starting smack dab in the middle. Then, like, I'm
Yep.
ignoring the first 5 steps to get me to the end. And it's like, no, that's not what you do. So you
Yeah.
focus on one thing at a time. You get it under control. You master it, and then you move on to the next.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And here at the time we're recording this, it's the very beginning of January, New Year, and it's easy to be very excited about the possibilities of this year. And it's like, I'm going to do all these things this year. I do this all the time. In fact, I'm back involved helping out on the marketing, building an in-house marketing team at CityTurf. And and I really have to keep reminding myself, I have a list of 90 things that need to get done, but there's about seven I can get done before spring, just as an example. And so, what are the most important things? Like, what will drive the most revenue and drive the most profit in prioritizing my list like that? And so, those are the areas I need to spend my time. And so much of what I have to do is really prune down the list of things I'm going to do and say, I want to do all this stuff, but realistically, if I could just get these five things done really well, this will move the needle in spring. And then I'll do the next few things and the next few things. That is a level of maturity that I didn't have for the longest time. I always overpromised myself. Like I was like, we're going to do all this stuff. And it never happens. And so as kind of going back to what you were saying, you made me think of this. It's like, there's a lot of problems in your business. There's a lot of things you need to do. There's a lot of fires burning. That's one of the hard things about running the business is this triage scenario where it's like, all where all the bodies are buried, all the problems, but you can only deal with a few of them. And you have to let the other fires keep burning and you have to still suck at other things. That's just how it is. And so you got to prioritize what are the most important marketing things, recruiting things, team building things, whatever. What are those few things that'll move the needle the most? We're going to do them and ignore everything else. And then we're going to rise. We're going to come up for air in about 3 months. And what's that new list? And then we're going to go work them and we're going to ignore everything else. Let the fires burn. And then we're going to do it again. And that's the best way to run the business. And it's brutal. It's like, I think that's one reason why a lot of people never have success is because it's just too much. It just drains the life out of you. And you're just so frustrated by all the problems and challenges. And eventually you just burn out on the whole thing. And I'm just telling you, that is the story of business. And it will be the story of business until millions and millions of dollars. I've hired people. I'll give you an example. I don't want to put names to it, but back in the software days, I'd bring people in from really big companies that you would know the name of. And like big companies and these people were higher ups. They'd be like running sales or they'd be running something at that business. And so they'd come into my business, which is a teeny little thing compared to these big organizations they've been at. And I feel all self-conscious. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, we got this problem. And I'm sorry, oh, we got this problem. Oh, I don't have that thing dial system created for you. You're gonna have to figure that out. I'm apologizing. And on multiple occasions, these people would say, like, I don't know what you're apologizing for. This is a really well-run business. Let me tell you how it was done where I worked. And I always had this idea that these big companies, these public companies, very profitable companies were like all dialed in and buttoned up. They're a mess as well. Like in my reason for telling you this is like, it's always a mess. Like if you're growing your thing, then it's always in a state of some amount of pain and some amount of fires. But I will tell you that first $1 million, really that first 500,000 is the worst of all of it. And then, kind of from there up to a couple $1 million is the next level of bad. It does to give you, to encourage you. It gets so much better. It's vastly, not even, it's so much easier to run a $5 million company than it is to run a $500,000 company. There's no comparison how much easier it is. Like so much easier. But even at 5 million or 10 million or 20 million, if you ever desire to go there, you're going to have fires burning. Things are going to not be perfect. And you just have to learn to say, what can I do now? We're going to work on that. And then we'll triage the next set of problems, next set of opportunities. And really try to keep, the reason I brought this up is really try to keep that in mind if you're in the early stages of your business, because it is really hard and really exhausting and really brutal, but it's this way for everybody. And you just can't beat yourself up as long as you're saying, you're prioritizing your list and saying, what's the next thing I can do that I have control over? And you do it and you legitimately do it. And you spend time on it. And then you go get the next list of things. If you're doing that, you're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And you'll eventually get there.
Yeah, I think it's just it's a process, right? Everything is you don't get from, A to Z, you go through the alphabet. And the same thing with business. It's for all of us, I have many things on my bucket list that I want to get to and accomplish, but I know I possibly can't get through my whole laundry list of things. But like you said, by spring, okay, here's two or three that I want
Yeah.
to be able to realistically get to and be okay with that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's this fine balance between being okay with it and not being too okay with it where you let yourself off the hook and you don't go.
Yep.
Like and so I have a very hard time finding that happy middle where I'm like just happy and go lucky in life. It's like it's okay that we're not getting there faster. I do live in a state of frustration, but you try to like between
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want this goal and where I'm at, like
yeah.
but and so it's hard to find that balance where you like feel some amount of peace between I'm not getting everything I want, but I'm getting some of it. I don't know if that made sense, but I kind of bring us back to when I was talking about, well, what are those actions that you can be tracking that you can do? Like if you had a team member and you want them to sell, how many visits are we making a day? If you have an inspector in your company and you have a customer service level that you want to achieve, how many inspections is this person doing a day? How many conversations? Well, we can have some of that for ourselves as well to not let ourselves off the hook, because there's a risk of letting ourselves off the hook and saying, oh, I'm investing in the business, that's why my profits suck. Or, oh, it's just there's a lot of stuff I got to do. It'll eventually get done. I'm totally cool with it happening someday. And then we go too slow. And then what happens is because we went too slow, eventually we're so burned out, we quit and give up on the business. This accountability to our team, this accountability to ourselves of are we doing the actions necessary every day to get the result that we want? I think that's a really good thing to be thinking about from the early days of a business. That's usually what businesses, as I said before, think about as they get more mature, but not smaller companies don't tend to think that way. And it's a helpful guide to make sure you're on track.
Mhm. No, I love that. I love that. Staying on track, using a guide, having some sense of direction. And I love how you just said, being okay with it, but not being too lax and okay with it, where
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
exactly. It's a fine line there. I don't know exactly how to toe that line, but that's why I would describe myself as a pretty happy person in general. Life has been happy. It's definitely been stressful at times, definitely been frustrating at times. There's definitely been bad, crappy stuff. But I have, for the most part, throughout my entire business career, lived in a constant state of frustration. It just never goes fast enough. There's always something, and I think as I've matured as a business owner, in the early days, I took that stuff. It was harder. I felt it more. And then eventually you just learn like the whole game of business is dealing with problems. Like that is what it is. Eventually you hire people to handle a lot of the problems for you, but it never ends. And so then you get more and more comfortable with it and it doesn't stress you as much. It doesn't wear on your mind as much, but it's still always there. There's always still a nagging frustration because I think most of us entrepreneurs have a vision of where we want to go in the future, like what life could look like someday. And we're like, I want that now. Like, why do I have to wait 5 years for this? How can we get it now? And, there's good in that because it makes you go. The bad in it is, you're constantly frustrated.
Exactly.
So
One
I
step
don't
at
know
a
how to,
time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just, yeah.
Well, Jonathan, great information. We really appreciate you giving us a lot of insight and actionable items and different things to think about. If someone wanted to reach out and get a hold of you, where can they find you at?
Right now it would be 5 for 50. So on 5 for 50 and it's the number 5, 4, and then 50 is spelled out. And you can find me online on the web at 5 for 50. You can find me on YouTube. And then in the coming month or so, I'll start showing up on Facebook, Instagram, and other places. And that's how you can get to me.
All right, excellent. Well, we'll put that in the
YouTube. I'm
yes,
sorry, I didn't mean to
YouTube.
cut you off, David. I was going to say on YouTube, that's what I'm most focused on and most care about, I guess you'd say. And I am active in the comments. I respond to the majority of the comments, like the vast majority. And so that's a way to interact with me. I look at the comments fairly frequently and I respond. I try to respond to all of them, frankly. I don't know if I'll always be able to do that, but right now the channel is small and it's working. And so now's a great time to subscribe and interact with me because I can handle it and I am. And so that's a great way to talk to me.
Perfect. We love that. We'll put that in the show notes so that people know exactly where to go for all those links. And we appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise. It's good seeing you again, David.
Yes, good seeing you as well.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
All right.
Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode. Make sure you tune into the next one. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Blueprint Boost for Contractors. We hope you found today's insights and strategies valuable for your contracting business. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and please leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring content that truly matters.